Hey, good morning from Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, the Stars weekly show talking Chiefs with you and the people who know them the best. Fellas, I'm looking at my computer, my laptop clock. It's 9:31. I think this is the earliest we have ever started the 9:30 SportsBeat Live. So congratulations to all of us for being so punctual today. Herbie Teope is here on the big screen. So is Sam Mellinger, Vahe Gregorian, and Sam McDowell. We're all here to talk about the Chiefs-Bills AFC Championship game on Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium. Kickoff at 5:40 p.m. This is the third annual. It turns out the third annual AFC Championship Game SportsBeat Live that we've done. So we'll keep doing them as long as the Chiefs appear in the AFC Championship game. So here we go. So the first, please send us your questions and comments. We'll get to as many of them as we can. The first question that I have for these guys is, do we really have to discuss the Chiefs playing a game without Patrick Mahomes? Do we really have to go there? I'll start with Herbie because Herbie is our injury guy. What's the latest on Patrick Mahomes, Herbie?
Well, he put in a limited practice on Wednesday, but you still have to be cautious because he remains in the concussion protocol. And the final step there requires an independent doctor to clear him. But it is a good sign that he was able to take the reps. Now, Andy Reid said yesterday he took all the snaps, but this was essentially a walkthrough practice. They were out there without helmets based on what we were able to see before they decided to move indoors. Today is the key. Thursday is the key practice. We'll see what they do because they do ramp it up. They went from the walkthrough, and then Thursdays is typically when you install everything. And then Friday is also where they ramp it back down. But today, Thursday, is the key for Patrick Mahomes. We'll see if he's out there. We'll see what the Chiefs officially designate him as on the injury report, or whether Andy Reid, after a practice, or the Chiefs tell us he's cleared.
All right, so Thursday's a significant day, but is there a possibility that Mahomes could be held out of practice or be held out of practice because of the protocol and still be able to play on Sunday?
Is that question to me or just open to the panel?
You're the one on the screen, Herbie, so you...
I think, look, he knows the offense well enough, okay? And he can sit there and take mental reps on the sidelines. Patrick Mahomes, to me, we've all seen his mutant healing-like powers from last year, where a dislocated knee, and before you know it, he's out there playing 2 weeks later. So he's the kind of guy that won't necessarily need all the practice reps because this offense runs through him. I think if he doesn't practice today, but he's still medically cleared before Sunday's game, why not put him in there?
Sam McDowell, it's probably important to emphasize that this isn't a Chiefs decision. A lot of people believe that it's just up to Andy to play him. I guess ultimately it is, but it's really a Chiefs decision. It's an NFL decision.
Yeah, an independent doctor has to clear him through the 5 stages of the protocol. So, there's not a specific timeline on each one of these stages. He could clear multiple ones in one day. Based on what he was doing yesterday, it appears he's probably on stage 3 or 4 of the 5. But ultimately, as the team physicians can progress them through those stages, it still has to be an independent doctor that ultimately gives them the go-ahead to play on Sunday. But by the way, just to add to what Herbie said, I would be surprised if Patrick Mahomes isn't out there on Sunday, and it's tough to. If this was an ankle injury, for example, we'd all be talking about him playing on Sunday. The only reason any of us have any hesitation is because with head injuries, you never know. You could potentially have symptoms appear on day 5 that you didn't have on day 1, 2, 3, or 4. So none of us can say for certain what's going to happen because the Chiefs, frankly, don't know for certain what's going to happen with the concussion. But it's certainly trending in the right direction for
him. So was it a head injury? We still don't even know that, do we? I mean, it's there's still a lot of mystery surrounding the nature of the injury.
They did call it a concussion on the injury report yesterday, which they haven't used that word And 3 press conferences now, Andy Reid has not used the word concussion, even when saying he'll just say the protocol, won't even say concussion protocol. But they did list him with concussion on the injury report yesterday.
Sam McDowell had a I think a particularly smart interpretation of this. Sam, tell me if I do you wrong as your mouthpiece here, but
you'll articulate it better than me, I'm sure. Anyway,
well, you just got when we were talking the other day, we got into a little of the discussion about the no-go element of the protocols, right? What keeps you from going back into a game, and it's the symptom to a little of the discussion about. It's the symptom less than it is what you specifically see. In other words, Patrick staggering as he got up, engaged an aspect of the protocol automatically without knowing what it was, right? Whatever the injury was. And I think we've certainly seen a number of people come up with this, and even people we've talked to that are suggesting that it was not necessarily a concussion, but quite potentially some form of chokehold. So, but nobody is saying that publicly with the voice that we'd like them to clear it up with. So he absolutely was going to go into the protocols no matter what, but we still don't really know the fundamental nature of the injury, really.
So it'd be a good time for Rick Burkhalter to make his season debut, wouldn't it? In past years, Rick, the Chiefs trainer, would come to the podium, break down a specific injury, and wouldn't take questions. He would leave, but you'd have a better idea of what was going on, if surgery was required, who was doing the surgery, where it was happening, that sort of thing. I would think that I don't think we've seen Rick all year since the preseason. So it strikes me that it would be a good time for Rick to make an appearance just to help clarify what precisely is we're talking about here with Patrick.
It's always interesting
when Rick Burkhalter not making an appearance. To me, that's a good sign that Mahomes is progressing well, because typically when we get Rick is when someone's out for the year, or someone's having to go through season-ending surgery. But the fact that he hasn't come out, I think that's a good sign.
The confusion here is that Andy Reid said he passed all of his tests after the game. And he again said that on Monday, that he passed all the deals that he needed to pass. And for somebody to pass all the tests but not play, that's where the confusion is. But like Vahe said, there's an actual language on the NFL's concussion in-game protocol that says if there's any sort of stumbling when trying to stand, you cannot return to the game. And we visibly saw that happen. So if you're wondering how can he pass the evaluation, but he still couldn't come back into the game, that's why.
This dude is gonna play.
Are we amusing you,
He's
Sam?
He's gonna play. I'm really enjoying the discussion, especially the part of pointing out that some people think this is a Chiefs decision and not an independent doctor decision. But I don't know, man. Like Sam just mentioned, I think it was Sam, that nobody can be 100% right. You can have symptoms on day 5 that don't show up 1, 2, 3, or 4. But whatever it's worth, and I know you guys have done similar stuff, but 2 people who are very close to this situation I communicated with, and one kind of hedged it a little bit and presented it as like very cautious, but optimism, but very cautious. And there was something about the communication that made me think he was sort of playing some games here. And then the second person I talked to was just like, he's playing, there's no chance that he's not. So they don't mean that literally, like Sam said, but this dude is going to play. The Bills know he's going to play. It seemed like Tyreek Hill kind of sort of like let it out of the bag a little bit, like sort of was hinting toward that yesterday in his availability. But I'm all for the gamesmanship, but I'm expecting to see him on the field on Sunday.
Hey, Sam, we'll know if when I get out there to the practice field here shortly, if they move indoors after we're all there, that they're still doing.
That's exactly right. And they'll get that to you as soon as you walk up to the gate too, and send you back on your hour drive home.
Sam, I love how you played the long game, just sitting back there with that bemused look on your face the whole time you were talking about it. Like,
I love it.
All right. A couple things. if Mahomes after the play had just sat there for a second, just didn't try to get up. If he had just sat there, maybe he never misses a snap. Maybe or the Chiefs need to take it, or they take a time out there and to give him an extra breath or two. I've thought about that. If he just decided to sit there after the hit and collect himself, again, maybe we're not having these conversations right now.
What's
Go
ahead. Oh, it's an interesting aspect of this is him running off the field, right? And whether he was, allowed to do that or just did it. I mean, it's not what you would think somebody would do after suffering a concussion one way or another. And it goes back to your point, Blair, I think a little bit like, well, how temporary was what happened, I guess, is really at the core of the question. Sorry, Sam.
I was just going to add real quick, just that a doctor that I talked to said exactly what Blair said, that, that was entirely possible, that he could have sat there for a second, gathered himself, maybe missed a play, come out of the game, but nobody would have seen the stagger, and therefore he could have just passed the protocol and come back in.
I thought, too, the thing that Vahe just referenced of him running from the tent to the tunnel, this guy is well aware of his surroundings, right? And he knew that cameras were going to follow that. He knew that people were going to see that. I think he absolutely, there was not showmanship, but I think there was sort of like, look, I'm strong. It's reminiscent, actually, of, excuse me, but in Denver last season when, he was sure to walk off by himself. In the beginning, it looked like this guy would need a cart and a stretcher, but he ended up walking off of the field on his own. And there's 100% chance that, he knows people are watching and he wants to present strength like that. That is absolutely in his character.
I'd argue that he actually swaggered off the field at Denver.
Yeah, right. And then was there. I think it's also relevant. He was there. We don't know if this happened the other day on Sunday, but in Denver, we know he was there to welcome the team in, and break them down and all that. Andy Reid referenced that Chad Henne was the one to break them down, but I'm curious where Patrick was when the team came back into the locker room.
I was in Denver last year. I was asking the Broncos media people what hospitals they take the players to that get injured seriously, and there's Mahomes like waving to people leaving the field.
Yeah. In your defense, though, you didn't know he was double jointed. So.
We had an email question from I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Bharat Talati, who asked about the play call, right? 3rd and 1, Mahomes option. He's run the option. They've run the option several times. It's a staple in the playbook. Is there any second guessing the play call there? Sam McDowell, what do you think?
No, not for me. I don't think this offense can operate the way that we've seen it without it. I actually asked Andy Reid that yesterday on the call. And he said if he doesn't feel comfortable calling a play like that for Patrick Mahomes, that he can't play. That means he's not safe enough to play. He's not safe enough to get through the protocol. And the reason the question is relevant, though, is we haven't seen him run a quarterback sneak, right, since he injured the knee last year. So they did make an adjustment, and to me, they don't need to make that adjustment. I mean, how many quarterback sneaks have we seen? Guys end up fine. It's not any more risky than it is sitting in the pocket and potentially getting hit in the pocket. But, I saw so many people talking about, oh, they shouldn't run the quarterback. Well, running the quarterback is a major part of this offense. And how many times have we sat here and talked about that it's an underrated part of this offense, and how many times he's able to pick up first downs on 3rd down by scrambling and stuff? That's not going anywhere. If Patrick Mahomes is playing, he's still going to be able to do those types of plays.
He had a walk-in touchdown on that play earlier in the game.
And the Super Bowl too. Vahe and I talked about that. The Super Bowl too. They same play. I mean, nobody has an issue with that, but the one that doesn't work out of course, suddenly becomes more highlighted.
It is interesting, though, the lack of sort of consistency between this and the sneak, right? Like the sneak is just total. That's just a mind thing with Andy. He's just kind of scared of it, and I get it. I totally get it. But it also, don't you guys think Patrick Mahomes, the one thing that he's not awesome at in football is sliding, like getting down. Like he's pretty terrible at it. He always kind of goes down awkward, and I never know, is that he can obviously slide. Like, that's not like some, skill that he needs to work on. I just wonder, does like the practice that I'm sure that he does it just lose his mind in that moment, that he, needs that extra half yard and will try and do it however possible, which is usually like kind of awkward looking. It's just a weird part of his game.
You reminded me, Sam. I gotta find this, but a couple of years, this has been a problem, not a problem, but a recurring question with him. And a couple of years ago, it happened like right on the day where we were going over to the Royals, and John Sleezer and I got Whit Merrifield to critique Pat's sliding. Right, I'll have to trot that one back out somewhere. But it was great. It was pretty good. It was pretty good the way Whit went about it.
Yeah. Those two guys are friends too, so there can be some banter. That was great. That was a great call.
I wonder if we'll see a quarterback option on the very first snap that the Chiefs take on Sunday. It'll pick up 9.5 yards, and on the second snap, he'll sneak for the first down. So.
It might be maybe run it with no option, actually, just a fake option where he's definitely pitching it or definitely running it.
Yeah. No. Okay, so if I remember this right, if I heard Sam Mellinger correctly, he's convinced Chad Henne is going to play on Sunday. So it has been a conversation this week, the confidence level in Chad Henne. Just if worse came to worse, and Chad Henne's the guy, let's at least address that idea and percentage chance.
Nothing changes whatsoever, Blair.
What I've heard. I've heard.
Next man up.
Look, Sam McDowell, from a betting standpoint, we've seen what would happen to the betting line if Mahomes starting versus Henne starting. It's about a 6 or 7 point swing, I think I saw.
Yeah, 6 point swing. And I think we all decided on this very program on Sunday it wasn't nearly enough.
Hey, you're talking about the quarterback who led the Chiefs on touchdown drives in the first two series against the LA Chargers a couple of weeks ago, and looked good doing it, and did it without Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, starters at the skill positions anyway. The offensive line guys were there, but not the skill position guys. So the memory of Matt Moore beating the playoff-bound Vikings and almost beating the NFC Championship Game bound Green Bay Packers shouldn't give Chiefs fans confidence if it's not Patrick Mahomes on Sunday.
Blair, one quick thing with Chad Henne that just has struck me though is, look, they're obviously not the same team without Patrick, but I wouldn't say you put up the white flag for some reason if Henne's playing. I just think it's a harder road. But a thing that I thought stood out even last week, Henne's got a little something going with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce himself. I think there's a little rhythm and a little bit of a connection that is a lot more than just throwing some guy out there. That ball across the middle, we might have talked about this the other day, to Kelce went really through a tight window. That was a 25 yards downfield or so. First completion to Tyreek Hill was a matter of good timing. Great catch by Tyreek Hill. I just don't think there's a reason to assume that they've got nothing if Chad Henne's the quarterback. And I know we'd all prefer to see Patrick play, but there's a part of me that would like to go into the parallel universe and see what the game would come out as with Chad Henne playing.
Yeah, I mean, Chad's a fine he's a representative NFL backup quarterback. He's better than a lot of backup quarterbacks the Chiefs have had through the years, but it's just, my God, like the guy that he's backing up is just different.
Right.
Right. I mean, like it becomes sort of, people have made this joke about like, is Patrick Mahomes a system quarterback? Well, the backup is going to be a system quarterback. Like that's just going to be, doing the reads and doing all, just more straightforward. But to Vahe's point, I mean, you still got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. That's a pretty good place to start.
It's not a give-up situation, of course, but this is a tough game for me, even if Patrick Mahomes does play. And if he doesn't play, I just think that the path is extremely difficult. I'm not going to say impossible, but I think the path to victory with Chad Henne would be extremely difficult.
You got a number on it
sure.
for us, Sam? Like a win probability, just off the top of your head?
I'd probably put it at 10%, Bahe. I'm not the optimist you are.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think I think of Alex Smith in playoff games and how the Chiefs came up just short, right, against the Steelers, the Titans, the Patriots. The Colts in his first year. But one thing that I don't remember seeing Alex Smith do in a couple of those, especially the later year losses, was take off and run on a 3rd and 14 and get 13.5 yards. That to me changed the way I look at Henne, that he's willing to see an opening the way Mahomes does and take off and kind of sacrifice his body a little bit. I don't remember Alex Smith doing it, at least not often anyway, in the years. Look, and I'm with you guys. It's not a likely scenario, but if Mahomes gets hurt again, Henne is the guy. He is definitely next man up, and I think the Chiefs can survive a period of time as they did Sunday against the Browns with Chad Henne. Start to finish, though, I'd give it a little higher than 10%, but well below 50% win probability for the Chiefs.
Is it safe to even have Chad Henne run? Is that a discussion we should have?
Give up the body.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the game and the Bills. Different team than the Bills team we saw in Week 6, Herbie, isn't it? Let's break it down. None of us were there in Buffalo in Week 6, but we all covered that game. I think that was the 4:00 kickoff game on a Monday afternoon. Rainy in Buffalo. Bills were without some starters, and we're coming off a butt kicking by the Titans. I thought the Chiefs played one of their 2 or 3 best games of the year then.
Yeah, and you're right. And the Bills were without their starting tight end, Dawson Knox. They didn't have their stud linebacker, Matt Milano, and a pair of defensive linemen who are a big part of the defensive line rotation, and Trent Murphy and Harrison Phillips. The other thing to consider in that game, the Chiefs caught the Bills as John Brown and cornerback, all-pro cornerback Tre'Davious White, were coming off injuries. They didn't play in Week 5, so maybe they weren't exactly 100% going into that game, because if I remember correctly, they were limited leading into that that matchup against the Chiefs. This time they're healthy, and this is a completely different team from what we saw from Week 6, because they do have all their key pieces now in place. Brown is back to 100%. You got Stephon Diggs, who's just an absolute stud. Cole Beasley, I love Cole Beasley, their slot wide receiver. He's a great underrated receiver in my opinion, but this is a dangerous team in my, as you look at them.
They're a lot better defensively too. They had some issues in the secondary, and their defensive line was kind of a mess when they played the Chiefs in Week 6, and they appear to have that thing fixed. I mean, they're 8th in DVOA now on defense, and they pressured. I think this is right. I think they pressured Lamar Jackson. I think 14 out of 30 dropbacks. I mean, they've got some stuff going. For real.
Well, what about that game plan that they tried to execute in the regular season game? They're not going to let the Chiefs beat them over the top. So what did the Chiefs do? It was kind of amazing, Sam, wasn't it?
Yeah. If I'm the Sam, I think it's smart. Like that's what I would do if I'm trying to beat the Chiefs. Like, I mean, I think that's a pretty. I don't know how you argue against it, right? Like, should they crowd the line of scrimmage and challenge the Chiefs to beat them over the top with Tyreek Hill? I mean, there's just the problem. The one problem with depending on how much you exaggerate with your safeties is it opens up Travis Kelce in the middle, and Kelce may be a better weapon than Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's a debate. Reasonable minds could disagree. They're both incredible. So, if it was just Tyreek Hill or the run game, that's a simpler formula than Tyreek Hill. It's like you got each level covered, right? Deep, intermediate, and the run game. But I certainly, out of those three, I don't know who would argue that the run game isn't the weakest of those three.
You know, it might be the first game. Well, actually, the second, because the first Buffalo matchup will qualify. That I think that the Chiefs' running game could be a very high priority on their key to success. You know, I was doing some stats on this. The Chiefs won a game against the Panthers when they rushed for 36 yards the entire day. That was after they rushed for 50 yards against the Jets. So in 2 weeks, they won 2 games rushing for 86 yards, and they scored 68 points. I mean, this is a team that's usually pretty okay without their running game. If the Bills come in here and play the Chiefs the same way they played them in Buffalo, they can't do that because they're going to force the Chiefs to have to – the Chiefs don't want to call run plays. We heard the reference that Andy Reid made, I think it was on Monday, about he comes from BYU. He likes to pass the ball every down. He wants to pass the ball. If you can force them to run the ball, they have to be successful with it. If they're only going to see 4 guys on the line of scrimmage or 5 guys on the line of scrimmage in the box, they've got to be successful with. They were in that game. They ran for 245 yards. Leslie Frazier said, lo and behold, they kept doing it and it kept working. But it was really interesting that a coach, especially Sean McDermott, their head coach, after the game said that he basically had no regrets in doing it. And how many times do you see a coach lose a football game, give up 250 yards on the ground, and be like, yeah, I kind of liked what we did after the game.
One of the things that's missing from that game, and I mentioned Matt Milano, okay, he is the quarterback of that defense. So when he's not playing in week 6 and getting the defensive players lined up properly, that they were shorthanded, and the Chiefs clearly took advantage of that. When you got a defense that's confused, think back to the good old days when the Chiefs had DJ, Derek Johnson. When he's out of the game, their run defense suffered because he wasn't there to direct traffic, and that's basically what happened in week 6.
Okay, Herbie, I know you got to get out of here. So before you leave, you're heading to practice, and hopefully we'll it'll be outdoors, and you'll get to see it, and maybe you'll see a couple of players. Kyle Coffey, one of our great members of our audience here, is asking for predictions. So before you get away, how about giving us a Chiefs-Bills prediction?
Oh boy, you put me on the spot here. Look, I didn't come away from the divisional championship round feeling great. Okay. If the Chiefs show up and play the Bills like they did against the Browns, I think the Bills can take them. And a lot of this really, really depends on if Mahomes is playing. If Mahomes is playing, then I think the Chiefs win. If he's not playing, then I'm going to give it to the Bills. How's that?
I say I think you should go to practice. And
with you.
All right. That's fair enough. Let's stay with it. Vahe, how does this game go? What should the Chiefs be concerned about? And will we see the Chiefs in Tampa in 2 weeks?
Well, I think the Chiefs should be concerned about their scouting on defense. If it turns out Chris Jones really didn't know Mitch Morse played for the Bills,
Been waiting 30 minutes to drop that in.
It was my keys to the game. Seemed like
the personnel.
And look, I do think what's interesting as heck about this game in a lot of ways is the very thing we've been talking about, which is how each game will take on its own personality. The Chiefs aren't going to run for that kind of yardage in this game, right? The dynamics of this game are going to play out differently for all the reasons we've said. Obviously, the biggest X factor really is Patrick or Henny, I think. I tend to think that sort of what Herbie said is where I'd sit, but I'm going to say either way, Chiefs about 27-21, something like that.
Didn't the Bills and the Chiefs play earlier this year? And didn't Morse and Jones hit each other at some point?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. He was referring to the last game.
Oh, the first day. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And he got out
and on the field, he was like, "Go on, oh, Mitch, what are you doing here?"
it's not like, by the way, it's not like Mitchell Wallflower. I mean, Chris is the ultimate personality, but you'd notice Mitch's presence around the locker room, around the other squad.
Yep.
When did you stop playing for us? It's just such a weird thing.
Am I at practice?
Brian Johnson says Chiefs are flat out better than the Bills, but Diggs is going to roast Ward. Oh, Sam Mellinger. He will be the target. If we limit Beasley, I like our chances defending them. Just tackle. Actually, there's some truth to that, right? And the Chiefs secondary is going to be under the spotlight with, especially if there's some doubt about Bashard Breeland not playing, and that changes things in the secondary, right? It changes the job of L'Jarius Sneed, who has been just terrific here this rookie season. In fact, made the Pro Football Writers All-Rookie team this week. And, Rashad Fenton has also missed last game. So I think the Chiefs secondary has done an outstanding job all season. The cornerbacks have been terrific as a group. You'd hate to see in a game against Josh Allen and these receivers, the Chiefs to be anything less than 100% healthy at that position group. Melly, what do you think?
Well, the question there, and I apologize, I forgot the name, but talking about the tackling, that applies to the quarterback too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that secondary and the linebackers are going to have to tackle just an athletic freak. Even by NFL standards, that guy can move and he is big and strong. I think that there's going to be a lot of points scored by both teams. I just think it's two of the best. Well, certainly this year it was two of the best three quarterback performances of this season are going to be in this game. It's these two and Aaron Rodgers. Like we've been saying, Diggs is unbelievable. He is a top 5 receiver, I think. Cole Beasley, that Herbie was talking about. There's just a lot of stars going on here. I feel like it's like a 60-40 game. I think the Chiefs are the best team in the league. So by rule, I think they're better than the Bills, but the Bills are good enough to beat anybody. It just seems like a 60-40 game, another one of these close games. So I would expect my dog is really trying to get in the show.
Bring him.
Come on.
There you go, Frankie. She just had a bath, so she looks kind of weird. But anyway, I feel like it's a 60-40 game. Chiefs will make a play or two down the stretch and, get another one of these close wins that Chiefs fans have been so angry with.
Right. I know, these Chiefs. So Sam McDowell, Chiefs are we're going to talk about this as Mahomes is going to play. Chiefs are a 4 point. I think it was 3. Is it down to 3 or 4 somewhere in there?
Yeah, it's at 3.
Okay. How do you see it playing out?
Pretty similar to those other guys. The assumption that Patrick Mahomes plays, of course, but I think the Bills are a really good team. It's not going to shock me if we're writing about the end of the Chiefs season on Sunday, but odds are I think that the Chiefs will win. And I agree with Sam. I think I feel probably about 60-40 on that. I do think it'll be more high scoring than the last one simply because I don't think the clock's going to be running quite as often as it was when they first met. So I think like a 30-27 game. And the one element I think we haven't talked about is Harrison Butker had a really bad week last week. And this is the type of game that could potentially come down to a game-winning field goal situation, I think.
Yeah, boy, that was you left 4 points on the field. The 33-yard kick seems to be his his problem. I think if they find themselves, well, and they will with an extra point anyway, move it back and make it a 34-yard kick or something. Do something. All right, Vahe, what do you think?
On the result?
Yeah, or the dog, either one.
Oh. Well, I think it'll be a mid-20s game, like 27-21. I do think the Harrison Butker thing in another time with more more opportunity to talk to him and things like that would be really interesting thing to explore. I mean, this might be anything from what we might perceive as kind of the yips to a change in the holder, with some people suggesting to us, and I think some of us or one of us observed it too, with Tommy Townsend maybe still spinning the ball a little bit. But it is a really weird thing when you can blast them from 67 in pregame, like I think Sam Mellinger noted the other day, and make them from 58 and 53 in the game. And yeah, you just can't be reliable inside the 35. I mean, it's just really kind of crazy. So I think Sam McDowell makes a great point. All these close games, I think, make the Chiefs stronger, make them more likely to pull through in these cases, but they haven't had to deal with this too many times, a time or two, but that could well be the thing it comes down to this time.
You can't say that this. It just seems blasphemy to say that this franchise hasn't dealt with the field goal situation at some point in the playoffs.
Well,
Let's clarify that.
That was in the before times. And speaking of which, by the way, here's something I was looking up when Blair pointed out this is our third straight year of doing this telecast in one form or another on a AFC Championship weekend with the Chiefs. The last time we went on the road for anything but a Super Bowl in the postseason was January 2016 to Houston. They keep having the home games. They keep having the AFC Championships. It's a different era.
It is. Well, they won that game in Houston that we went to New England the next week. So.
Oh, that's right. Oh yeah.
But that was the last season the Chiefs played on the road in an opposing team's stadium in a playoff game. They've all been at home or the Super Bowl since then. A couple things I think about with the Chiefs. Do you know that offensively, last three games, whether it's starters or not starters, 22, 21, and 17 points. That's got to be the lowest three-game stretch in the Mahomes era for Chiefs offense. You throw away the 21, which was the backups, and it's 22 against the Browns, and that's Mahomes missing a quarter and a half, but 17 against the Falcons. But on the encouraging side of that, defense has held the Falcons and the Browns to less than 20 in those games, and I just like the way the defense as a whole is playing right now. It reminds me of what happened last year, only maybe getting a little bit later start, because I thought the whole month of December that defense was rounding into form in 2019. I think it's happening. It happened a little later this year, but I think they're playing really well. They played three great quarters against the Browns, and then led up two drives to make it a close game. And the offense couldn't bail them out. Couldn't get Butker missed field goal, and they couldn't take advantage of the Tyrann Mathieu interception that produced the missed field goal by Butker. So anyway, I think it's as strange as it sounds, I have as much confidence in this Chiefs defense to limit the Bills, maybe to field goals and a punt or two, which is what I think it's going to take. Buffalo they're better. They're hot. They're better than they were in Week 6. Much better. They're hot. The only game they've lost since Week 6 was the Hail Mary game to Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. And it's funny, the Bills gave up like 309 passing yards to Phillip Rivers in the first playoff game, and then really shut down Lamar Jackson and the Ravens last week. So you don't know exactly what you're going to get from the Bills. But I think what we're going to get from this game is it's the Chiefs' MO this year to play everything close. No matter the opponent, no matter the site, they're going to play it within a score. And the Chiefs are either going to make a stop or a play on a 3rd and 1 at the end to get it done and win by 2 or 3 points. So I think it's a low-scoring game. I'd bet the under. I think the over-under is 53. I think the game will be in the mid-20s, and the Chiefs will prevail, and we will be heading to Tampa in a couple of weeks. So on that, there's some great questions that we will get to next time. Coleman Brockmeyer says, what do we think about the Chiefs playing the role of the villain nationally? I like that idea. We'll talk about that next time we get together after a Chiefs victory. So, hey, look, some really good questions. Ivy, Kyle, Paul, Brian, Chris, Coleman, Jesse, appreciate you guys checking in with us. And thanks to Herbie Teope, Sam Mellinger, Bahe Gregorian, Sam McDowell, and to our producer, Beth Welsh. We will be coming at you a Midnight Express edition because it's going to be late on Sunday night after the AFC title game with the Bills. So we will talk to you then, and thanks for joining us.